I've come to the conclusion that what's old is new again, right? It's AI today. It's now we're talking AI transformation. Like, hey, we're going to help you build that AI transformation strategy, right? 10 years ago was digital transformation. The modalities were different. The questions then were, are you mobile, right? Are you digital, right? Are you contactless, right? We're in that same world again. We're doing AI transformation, and at the end of the day, it's still software, right? And it's still about, are you on a stack that can kind of move, move and be agile.
Welcome to tomorrow's Best Practices Today podcast. I'm Clark Newby, and today we're joined by Arya Barirani. Now, Arya is CMO, but he's not just CMO of one organization. He's CMO of Hitachi Americas. He's also CMO of Hitachi Digital. So all of marketing operations in the Americas, as well as globally for Hitachi Digital. We'll talk a little bit about that. He came to Hitachi via their acquisition of Global Logic, a very large digital product engineering services organization, was CMO and executive director there. Obviously, he's gotten tapped for the CMO role at Hitachi Americas, must be doing something right. Before that was VP of marketing at Infoblox. So Arya's been knocking it out of the park, doing some really interesting things. Big brand globally. We're excited to have you join us here and hear all about it, Arya. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Clark. Glad to be with you.
So it's funny. You hear, well, maybe it's just a demographic thing, but I think about Hitachi. You think about Hitachi and some of the different brands or the different places you've seen the Hitachi brand through the years. I know there have been huge shifts in what Hitachi is focused on, um, which means huge shift in the markets that you're serving and going after. So even with a brand that I think probably all of us know the Hitachi brand, it's globally famous. But there's work to be done, I think, I would imagine, to square that brand perception with the markets that you're going after. So maybe at the top level we could start there. It's like, how are you going about that reframing of who Hitachi has been to who you are and the solutions that you offer?
Yeah, great question. That's one of the big challenges. Just a little bit of, I think, framing may be helpful here for the audience that chooses to spend the time to listen to to me. Um, uh, Hitachi, if you look at it, it's a 110-year-old company. It was founded in Japan and has gone through the years, continuing to evolve kind of the product and technology. When we ask our audiences, what do they know Hitachi for? Most of them refer to the kind of the legacy things that everyone knows Hitachi for. In the US, it's mostly like TVs and some consumer products. Hitachi was actually in the laptop business for a while back in the 90s,
Sure.
so some people remember that. And so that's kind of what the foundation of the brand awareness for the audience is. And it's actually not a bad thing because most everybody recognizes the name of the company, recognizes the brand, knows the logo when they see it. The problem is, as companies evolve and they get into new businesses, which Hitachi has done over the years, the things that they want to be famous for changes. And so now you have a different problem, which is everyone knows you, but they often know you for the wrong thing. So you have to
Right.
kind of reframe the brand for the modern stuff that you're trying to do with them. For the audience that's listening to this, if you're a startup, this is probably not your problem because you're introducing your brand into the market for the first time. And so you have a different set of challenges, which is there's no existing perception, and you have to create that existing perception. And for companies like Hitachi that have been around, I'd say we're on the larger range of the enterprise companies. We have to figure out how to continue to evolve the brand to these modern modalities. So my task right now is Hitachi over the last 10 years has gone from a heavy equipment, metals and mining and electronics and consumer product company into a digital services, energy, mobility type of set of solutions. So my big challenge now is to put programs in place to reframe that. And we can certainly get into the tactics, but that's fundamentally the challenge and the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's the challenge of a lot of times in marketing or in creative endeavors in general, it's like, oh, the tyranny of the blank page. Like, how do you get started, right? And there's tons of challenges we're all familiar with there. But Hitachi, established brands that are growing, brands that are shifting like this. You have to have an eraser as well, right? You don't have that blank sheet of paper. You gotta erase off in a productive way this perception, leverage it where you can, obviously, but reframe it. And that's got to manifest, I'm sure, in dozens of specific ways. But how do you like when you think about your annual plan around the brand strategy, what are the levers that you're trying to pull? Or maybe what's the movement you want to see in the framing, or what are the levers that you're pulling to make that movement happen?
Yeah. I think we're making investment in trying to get as many eyeballs as possible. So first thing is like, who are the relevant audiences and how much can I get in front of them? That's kind of like job number one, right? Now you might have the perfect message, you may not have the perfect message, but that's not a trivial formula in itself. If you look at what's happening in the audience segments today, everyone is just kind of like completely inundated with so much messaging through all of the different channels that they're going through. So one of the things that we really try to figure out is what's the media strategy? Where are we going to find the right people? And then how much money can we put into the channel, right? Because some of those channels are expensive.
Yeah.
We're literally looking at. So how I'm framing it, just so you know, is I kind of break down the task into two primary exercises. One is above the line brand building, which is all of that kind of raw awareness for the cool stuff that we're known for. And this could be anything from people have done Super Bowl commercials. The thing that I'll tell you, the answer, to jump to the answer is how many of those are really relevant to me, right?
Right.
And so you're paying for impressions, but you really want those relevant impressions. So you have to start to now really, really tighten and titrate and figure out. So one is kind of the media plan, and then how much money can I put into it? So that's a very high level thing. The other is then what are the assets and what are the channels, right? How can I break through? People aren't reading 10-page white papers like the old days anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long this
Yeah.
podcast is, but maybe you want to put that in a vertical format and then, put it in a TikTok or a YouTube Shorts version because attention spans have gotten shorter.
Yeah,
And so we do
obviously. Yeah.
use video a lot. And I believe, by the way, social is a very, very efficient channel to get to the audiences with the hyper targeting that you can do through social media, especially
Yeah.
LinkedIn, very relevant to our B2B audiences. So sorry about the long-winded answer, but I'm
No.
breaking it down. That's kind of the brand play. And then I've got a sales team that's like, okay, so what are you doing for me? Right? And by the way, they love the brand stuff because they want to go in and be recognized. They want the business card to open doors,
Obviously. Yeah. Yeah.
and that helps if you've got a brand that, people can resonate with. But
And they don't want to have to carry the water of that reframing, right? They want that done before they want to be in front of the right person with the right perception so they can start to do their work.
right. They don't want to spend the first 15 minutes, explaining how Hitachi's evolved and why they should be in the room, right? They want to arrive at that hopefully warmed up audience. But then, so that's the second part of it, which is really account engagement. And so, because of the nature of the products that we sell, it's very top down, kind of executive level, or committee based selling. So we have to get face to face with clients. It's not something that you buy on a transformer that's going to go into your energy infrastructure for 35 years, right? Is not something you buy on the web with a credit card. So it's a very, very high touch type of engaged sales model and sales motion. And so then the marketing has to adjust for that.
Yeah. Yeah. These are very large, typically large, I would imagine, very highly considered purchases, right? And so you move, I would imagine, as you're moving into the selling process and supporting the selling process, that this is, these are big bets, even personally, right? For an individual to say, like, this is the way we're going to go with Hitachi. These are big numbers. They're going to show up in meetings. They're going to show up in budgets, et cetera. So I would imagine we've talked about so the leverage of the digital and the span of all that, but it probably gets pretty personal and personalized for each deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Well, every deal from a proposal perspective is very, very bespoke, obviously. But here's where we have a little benefit of the legacy of the brand being around 110 years. Because when we also ask people about what do you know about brand attributes of Hitachi, they usually say reliability, safety, things that I can depend on. So the good news is that the brand, having been around for a long time, is considered generally very positively from those attributes that people care about. If I'm going to make my bet, it was kind of the old IBM thing, right? You can never
Yeah.
get fired. Hitachi's kind of in those ranks in terms of kind of that sterling reputation for having a high quality product. So thank God I don't have to worry about that part of it. I mean, I can reframe it, but I don't have to try to, polish it.
Yeah.
So
Repair it or anything. Yeah.
repair. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a lot of places we can go with that. And I think this is one of the things that the folks that are listening, as you consider the business that you're working on, what are those dynamics? What are the sales motions, and is the marketing really mapping to those sales motions, and how are you layering the brand around that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. How do you map, again, being outside in, thinking about the engagement that you need, the people you need to be engaging? How does your organization design fit to that? And how do the channels and strategies that you pick? Let's talk a little bit about the people. And I know, perhaps everybody doesn't have, that's listening has the benefit of the sheer number of folks in their marketing organization. But there are a lot of folks that are rolling out newer companies, growing companies that have these higher uh, these purchase decisions that are much more highly considered. And so, what does the shape of your marketing organization look like because of that? I'm imagining probably a little bit more of what we would call sales enablement or account engagement, et cetera, things like that. But talk to us about that when you've got this kind of sales cycle, personalized, highly highly considered.
Yeah. So you'd be actually surprised. I mean, given the size of Hitachi, you'd imagine that we have hundreds of people sitting in the office here. We're actually really small and nimble, and I prefer
Great.
that. I really love that, by the way. I've worked in companies where they've had 400, 500 people in the marketing department. It's just, it's infinitely harder to execute the bigger the organization, right? So I like the fact that I've got two teams, one in the Americas group and one in the digital group. By the way, we represent roughly about $16 billion worth of business in the U.S. And
Good for
so
you.
significant amount of business. Now, these go through business units. A lot of that, products are in the business units, and they have their own marketing people. So Hitachi Energy has a marketing team, and Hitachi Rail has a marketing team, and Hitachi Digital, that's my marketing team. Um, but the way I look at it from org design, it's not very different than how a startup might set up their organization. And I look at it from a capabilities perspective, not necessarily an org perspective. So what are the muscles that I need to have to get the job done? Right? And it might be a little bit different here or there. Like we know we got to do more of a brand awareness play. So I need more people maybe kind of dialed up on the creative and advertising and brand side of things. So I might kind of bias for that a little bit.
Yeah.
On the account engagement side, we're predominantly focused on a field marketing team that can, boots on the ground, right? Get sales guys in front of clients, right? How can we do that? And the smart guys in the back office that help enable those boots on the ground are the ABM guys, right? They're the ones that are looking at all of the key accounts that we care about, picking a cohort of 20, 30 that we must have, breaking that down, creating account intel, figuring out who are the targets, what are the profiles, and then feeding that into the rest of the marketing organization so that then we can action that and try to communicate with them and get them to engage with us, either see one of our podcasts or watch a video, go to the website. But ultimately, the goal is, we want to break bread with these guys.
Hmm.
The dinner is like the ultimate thing for us. Once we found that person, if we can get them to dinner with our execs in that city where they live, that is a really, really good life cycle. So when we look at the org, we've got the ABM. Really, it's a person. It's not even a team. We got ABM. We got some field marketing, which is working at the field level. We have a content team that's kind of building that
Sure.
stuff that people can engage with. I have a couple folks which are brand oriented, but we use a lot of agencies for most of the work we do, believe it or not. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of the creative work is in, I've got a 3-tier model for creative. I've got my really, really sterling, expensive person here in the U.S. that knows my brand. She builds, and she's a freelancer. She builds all my main stage content, right? I've
Mhm.
got a mid-tier person, that will do our PowerPoints, and I've got a person in a low-cost geography that's helping me create some of the really quick and fast, like, oh, I need a bug, I need a quick
Right. Yeah.
lockup, right? So we've built a machine that can move quickly. You have to have a comms capability, because I failed to mention that. I think that
Yeah.
one's really important because the work that we're doing in terms of like our PR, our social media, and anything related to internal comms. By the way, all of that goes through a very small comms team. And I
Hmm.
want to double click on this. I heard an article on the radio the other day um, where the who was it? The tech editor for the New York Times said that she doesn't get calls from the tech companies anymore like she used to. She said when Google wants to launch something, they don't call us anymore.
Right.
They just put it in a blog and they post it on LinkedIn or they post it on their website, right?
Yep.
So all of the companies in the world now have broadcast capabilities. So I
Yeah.
think traditional media has really given way to new media, and we use a lot of that. And it's not like all these long, grandiose blogs, but it's mostly LinkedIn for us as a channel to our audience. And so
Yeah.
that's a really, really key area. So the communications teams handle that. And then last but not least, operations, right? The operations guys that are just tracking those metrics, because I'm not going to get my budget if I can't showcase that we moved the needle, right? So I need somebody to be minding the metrics and the KPIs for us. And especially, I love Japanese precision. Hitachi is very precise about KPIs. They want to see, how we contribute. So operations is another capability. But I would look at it that way and then decide what do you want to titrate up and down. And it's pretty straightforward.
Right. Well, and one of the things that you just mentioned is we're all publishers now, right? Because of the change in the channels, because of the lowering of the hurdles to, I mean, we're old enough to remember, and we worked together at Mercury doing some of that stuff where you had to have the crew show up with all their AV equipment and the lighting, and you were not going to get in front of that camera without 5 weeks of scripting and all the bugs and everything. And now we just do this. We open up a window on our laptop and we can generate this great content, and the fidelity is climbing higher and higher. And you can be more customized in person to person. What it made me think about was as things go more and more digital, you're also getting more and more, it seems like, face to face as well. So I was wondering if on in the obviously with COVID, there was whatever, a year and a half where everybody had to revamp their plan. Like, we're not doing our user conference, we're not going to that trade show. Things seem to be coming back with a vengeance over the last couple of years. People are really hungry to get out, get face to face again. I guess, I think that's a hot head nodder, but you tell me if it's different for Hitachi. And how do you make those events the worthwhile time for folks to actually get out from behind their Zoom screens and come out and break that bread with you? Because there's a lot more ways for them to get their information now. And you look at the stats, right? We always used to say, 80% of the, education has happened before they're in market. It's probably 95% now. So why come out and how do you make sure that you can get that opportunity in front of them?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And I think I 100% agree with you. I mean, the modalities of what's available in digital changes the dynamics. My worldview or our approach on face-to-face events is that, and I'm using one of my, old CEO adages where, he stood in front of the sales team and he said, I want people to be worried about relationships, not transactions, right? And so for us, it's about the relationship. And so one of the things that we do is that we try not to do any selling at these events. So starting outside in, we're very, very respectful. If we want to bring executives in, we know we can't get them for more than a day, right? So
Right.
let's make it efficient for their time, where we compress enough content for them that they can feel like they're getting value, but they can come in for dinner the night before, and then they can leave on the next flight the next day, right? Some of them might stay and leave in the morning, depending on where they are.
Yeah.
But generally, if we're doing senior client events, it's never more than a day. Anything more than that, they're going to be like, man, I don't have the time in my schedule to go fit that. So we usually bring them in for dinner. We'll do a dinner keynote with a really kind of marquee speaker that is someone that they want to get their picture taken with, or someone whose book they want signed,
Right.
right?
I was going to ask, are these like athletes and astronauts, or is
No.
this leading minds in the space, or
Yeah,
you tell me.
so the way, like, I'll tell you the last one we framed, which worked out beautifully. By the way, it could be athletes and astronauts too. But one of the things that we did was we said this event, the content for this event is going to go from the wider geopolitical economic worldview down, down, down to the technology context. So we started the night before at dinner and we brought Neil Ferguson, who's a historian. He's a Scottish historian, but he's like a Hoover Institute fellow. He
Yeah.
was teaching at Stanford. The guy came in and gave a master class. By the way, go for college professors because they're really good at lecturing, right? And he just gave this master class, like 3 slides, and all of these executives in the room, they all freaking went back to grad school. They were taking notes, like, and they couldn't wait to ask their question at the end. I mean, we transformed these people who have been in rooms where everyone listens to them, right? To
Right.
people that they're like, they were tuned in, And so Neil just masterclass. This is what's happening in economics. Here's the historical context. Here's where things might go if, this election result comes or if that election result comes. And here are the impacts to your business that you may look at. Here are the mega trends on money and
Sure.
crypto. It was unbelievable. And then the next day, everyone comes back, breakfast, lots of networking time, by the way. We do long breaks, long lunches, 90-minute lunches,
Yeah.
where people can just kind of get to know each other, and again, people appreciate the networking time. So we don't like overburden the schedule. The second thing we did was we brought Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great
Sure.
and Built to Last, right? And he was the guy who was behind the BHAG at Stanford and
Yeah.
all of the stuff that I think, Clark, when you and I were trying to work on our marketing plans, right? And he held a
Yeah.
freaking master class, and people were taking notes. Start with the who, figure out your flywheel, all of that kind of stuff. So we pepper in a lot of content. It's more expensive to bring in external speakers, but there wasn't a single Hitachi sales pitch presentation about our products or solutions in that. We had
Yeah.
panels on how to figure out AI. We had people from NVIDIA. We had panels on following the money. We brought in all of the VC guys. So all external. We brought customers that talked about their challenges,
Right.
right? But zero Hitachi content. So it's like
Yeah.
a 1 day, we call it like a 1 day MBA, right? And people love it. And they came in and, we get really good accolades from the clients.
And tune down to their neighborhood, right? The value, that external value all the way down. I love it. And then the validation, right? Nothing more powerful. If you want to hear about the value of what I provide to my clients, don't talk to me. Talk to my clients, talk to my customers, right? And getting out of the way of that conversation and giving it room to breathe. And in the past, I've used the dynamic of introducing those customers, leaving the room physically, like just go, go nuts. You ask them what you would ask them. That kind of transparency, that kind of um, um, I guess that genuine
It's trust.
flavor is
It's trust.
it's which is the ultimate currency, right?
Yeah.
The kind of bet that they're going to make on you and your technology.
We authentically believe in it, and we authentically believe in wanting to enrich these clients, not sell to them, and they believe it. And I think what we've done now, we've done this for several years. People keep coming back, and they're like, "Hey, are you guys doing this event next year? I'd like to come."
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because they know that economic exchange of value for them is valid. By the way, we serve some pretty good food, and
No, but no alcohol, right? Yeah.
a little bit of that, a little bit of that.
All right, we're going to put a pin in our conversation right there. Arya shared so much insight with us. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, Arya is the CMO of 2 different organizations, so he's bringing twice the insight to us. So we're going to actually split this conversation into 2 episodes. So we're going to stop here for now, but please be on the lookout for part 2 of this interview, where we're going to talk about how you can take maybe a smaller team can take the things and the learnings that Arya is sharing with us and apply them to maybe an organization not quite so large as Hitachi. We're going to talk about Arya's framework for AI's evolution and the business implications of AI coming more and more into our realm, and look ahead to future marketing leadership skills that we think are going to be needed as we move into the world of AI agents and even the realm of physical AI. And we'll explain that, talk a little bit about that in the next episode. So thank you for joining us for this episode. Can't wait to share even more insight from Arya with you next episode. We'll see you there.